Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeve, support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in that store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
How's it going? Glad to be back.
Well, it's time to talk about another set. Did you know this set was even coming out?
I was aware that this set was coming out, mostly because over the Thanksgiving break, I was on my phone a good amount of the time. But that's about the only reason. I haven't really seen much chatter about it beyond like a couple of the cards, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I also haven't. One of the people I work very close with had a preview card for this, which is like the only reason I saw anything about it coming out before it did. But like I feel like, you know, Brothers War came out 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks.
We got like 3 days of previews, Thanksgiving, and you're like, what just happened? I'm sorry, who? And like it's 834 cards.
Right.
It's 834 cards. Like the people in item creation were just like, we just finished the Brothers War. Are you serious? And they're like, yep, 830 more. Here we go.
In fairness, they are different teams, so they probably don't have a lot of overlap. But like, yeah, I was scrolling through the list for the top 10, and I had 10 cards that I liked before I got to like red or whatever, and I was like, oh my god.
Well, there are only, I think, 41 new cards, I believe.
I think it's 50 something, but regardless, there's not a ton of new cards.
There's not a ton of new
ton of reprints, which is expected. Either way, the set's very large, and that's the thing. It also came out right after Pro. However, we also begin with our choice, the top comment from the last top 10 in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who is the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Brothers War cards. Ruben?
Well, He Vampire 989 had a lot to say. And I'm gonna tell you about it. Okay, guys, I'm sensing some bias here with the coalition. Yes, there's some love for my Phyrexian brothers and sisters in the list, but you guys fail to see the ease of dropping one of the most pushed meld cards in the set. And no, I'm not talking about Titania. I'm talking about Mishra, claimed by Gix. 6 modes, and they're all useful. You're going to be on the aggressive package anyway. So yeah. Play Engine on turn 3, Mishra on turn 4, Unearth and Meld on turn 5. Then swing that oppressive 9/9 every single turn. You've earned it, champ.
It's a hell of a magic card. Now, this is assuming you know what Mishra, claimed by Gix, is, and it's assuming you know what Phyrexian Dragon Engine is, because I just don't want to say all those words, but you recognize
Go look them up. It's got a lot of words.
A lot of words. You tackle both, you flip over this stupid thing, which is a 9/9 legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Artificer. And whenever Mishra lost to Phyrexia enters the battlefield or attacks, you choose 3 of these damn things, and I haven't. I'm telling you, it's a hug from Jesus. Target opponent discards 2 cards, or Mishra deals 3 damage to any target, or destroy target artifact or planeswalker, or creatures you control gain menace and trample until end of turn, or creatures you don't control get -1/-1 until end of turn, or create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens, and it's a 9/9. Now, one of the things this does not do, which God knows it does a lot, but it does not say destroy target creature. And sometimes they might have something really stupid and huge, and you might not get there. I've been in that situation where I was like, how did I flip it? Yeah, how did I flip this and not win this game?
Right.
There are times when that can happen. But still,
you guys remember when cards had the flavor text was the most text on the card? Do you guys remember those days?
Yeah,
it was painful watching Evan try to say all of that, or like I was just like.
And I can't remember who else I was talking to about this. I don't think it was you guys, but you know, Carrie helps out at Cool Stuff, and she makes items and stuff. And she was making the set for Jumpstart, and she came to me and she said, "Hey, there's something wrong with this card." And I was like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And she's like, "Well, there's nothing on it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, there's no text. And I was like, "Well, what card is it?" She says, "Is Samaru?" And I was like, Oh, honey, you haven't seen a vanilla card in your entire history of making Magic cards, so she thought something was wrong with it.
That's very good.
And I don't blame her, right? She's like, what's wrong with this card? It's supposed to have words on it. I'm like, no, they
accidentally left it out. Oh, no.
Oh, no, they screwed it up.
So cute.
It's lovely. So We do appreciate you being a part of the show. The Vampire 989. If you get at us on Twitter at Magic Mike's Cast, ship us a DM. We will get you your prize. And thanks so much again for being part of the show. And thanks to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway. And stay tuned for our top 10 list this week. And maybe you can win next week's free or next top 10's free gift certificate. Because we kind of we're going to pepper these in with the +1/+1s, and it's going to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
That said, let's talk about Jumpstart 2022. Some really cool stuff in here. There's a whole anime theme card reprint stuff, which I thought was neat. Yeah. Some of the new cards are super cool and flavorful and interesting, and I thought they were nice. And so let's go ahead and get started here with our number 10. Ruben, what's your number 10?
Well, you mentioned that there were 800 cards in this set, 834 cards in this set. A lot of those are reprints. It's a lot of versions of basic lands, but there are not as many original cards. So when they put an original design into the Jumpstart set, you expect something spectacular. You expect something interesting. Recently, what they've been doing, though, is they're like, this card makes us happy. And we want to put this like joke or this meme or this idea to ink, right? Mm-hmm. We want to put it to cardboard and we want it to exist. And it makes me very happy that 2 zombies in a trench coat exists in the form of Suspicious Shambler. Suspicious Shambler is a 4/2 zombie that's a common for 3 generic and a black. It's very simple. It says, pay 4 generic black, and exile it from your graveyard. Make 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Activate only as a sorcery. It was the perfect disguise, at least until its stomach started moaning. It's very funny. It's just 2 zombies in a trench coat, and that's hilarious.
Anytime anything's in a trench coat, it's very funny. Well, I guess there's the inappropriate naked man or something. Right. But that's in general, when you have like the minions or whatever, like those skits are always fantastic.
It's always fun. I mean, this is, and we'll hit on some of this for the cards I chose. I really tried to look for, kind of eloquent designs that I liked about Jumpstart or any Magic card really, but like this is cool. You get it, all of it works. It's 4 power because it's 2 of them attacking, quote unquote, but you split it up later. I love it. It's fantastic. Nerd Girl, what's number 10?
So I looked at the entire list of the set, and I picked cards that I knew were reprints or cards that I had never seen, but I don't actually know if they're first time cards. But I did a mix of things. I'm like, oh, I'm glad this got a reprint, and or just cards I thought, oh, this is kind of unique and something I think would be really cool to play. And the first one is not a very exciting card, but it's not typically what I see when like it's kind of 2 different cards smushed together on a very interesting creature type. And we're going to talk about, well, I guess it's not an interesting creature type, but the picture is very interesting. It is Giant Ladybug.
Yeah.
A 3 mana insect with reach. It's a 4/1 that says when Giant Ladybug enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, shuffle, put it on top. So it is fixing your mana base. It's not ramping you or giving you card advantage, but I wouldn't expect it to because it's a 4-powered creature for just 3 mana. Typically you'll see, a 4/2 vanilla for 3 mana. Like that's pretty normal for the like sort of 23rd playable card. This does a lot more. It's got a keyword. It's going to fix your mana base a little bit. And it's also just a really pretty ladybug, which I'm excited to play this card.
We get to have ladybugs in Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just, this set feels like it was made out of pure love. Like the cards that are in this set, the cards that have been reprinted, whoever was in charge was just like, I want these things to exist and willed them into existence. And I feel like the Giant Ladybug is a poster child for this. I mean, you look at the multicolored polka dots, the scale of this thing, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are nice. 3 mana for a 4/1 reach is still very formidable. It's a fine ability, it doesn't always have to be the flashiest thing.
Yeah.
And so for my number 10 here, this is one of the cards that is technically a reprint. However, Wizards definitely said, hey, people like anime and like weebs or something exist. I don't know exactly the right lingo. I'm an old dude, but my kids know. And but all I'm saying is some of this artwork is absolutely fantastic, and I thought it was great. And Balan Wandering Knight is not a card I really had on much of my radar anyway, because it's from Commander 2017, so I didn't get to see it in any of these weird formats I play anyway. But it is a fantastic Magic card, and it's even cooler now with a sweet anime image on it. For 2 white and 2 generic mana, it's a 3/3 rare legendary Cat Knight with first strike, and it has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached to it. And for a white and generic mana, you attach all equipment you control to Balan.
Yeah, I mean, anime cat girl.
It's
Like,
cat
what more
lady.
can you say?
The
You
cat
gotta, if you're gonna, we're in this era of e-girls on Twitch, and like people loving that
Fan
sort of
service.
style.
Service.
Yeah,
fans.
this is perfect. Like, it's great.
Nerd Girl cosplay?
E-girl on Twitch.
Nerd Girl cosplay?
Nerd girl cosplay. Yeah.
We'll get you some
I
ears.
will-
We can fund some ears. We can do a go ear fund me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you guys want to go fund me / kickstart this
whole-
cosplay costume, I
Yeah.
will do it.
That would be unbelievable.
Evan, the next event that you guys host, I will come as this character if you want to help me with the costume.
Wow.
Deal.
Incredible.
Wow.
Incredible.
Get
So
on it. Get on it, fans.
let's bounce over here to my number 9, because my number 9 is very straightforward and simple, as we mentioned, sort of like the Ladybug, and that I really liked it when I was like, oh man, that's just cool and straightforward, and doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to have a million words on it to make me go, that's a cool Magic card. Infernal Idol is a common, so 3 generic mana artifact. It taps to add a black mana. But it also has 2 black and generic mana, tap, sacrifice. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. And I know it's a little thing. I know it's not going to be the star of the set. It's not going to be a $20 card. It's not going to be a card you want in every black deck or whatever. But I love that it exists. It's like a unique type of mana rock, and making mana rocks that do different, interesting things. As an old man Magic player, I think that's cool. And we just didn't see that back in the day. Back in the day, this would have been 3 mana, add black, get over it, But
Right.
that's about it.
This is like a clue stone,
Kind of.
sort of.
Yeah.
But the effect is cheaper and it's monocolored. Yeah, I think this is very cool.
I actually like it when the top 10s are not filled with just mono $20 cards. Like, anybody can look at a set and be like, oh, these are the 3 dragon mythics that are going to be worth
Right.
X. And then here's like the removal spell of standard for this rotation, and move on. But yeah, things like this that are sort of the building blocks of what make the format good is what I like.
Yeah. It's never going to be the best card in your deck, but it's not going to be the worst card. And I think that's really neat. Nerd Girl, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is a card that I decided to put on here just because I'm always kind of interested, especially in limited formats, when the win condition is not get your opponent to 0. And I think that is always really interesting. It's sort of like a little bonus bounty for myself. I'm obsessed with crumble cookies. So like when I'm streaming, if I do something sort of weird, I get a cookie, whatever that is for the set. So like, milling someone out is like the baseline, or winning with happily ever after, stuff like that. I get a cookie. So this one is definitely going to be a cookie bounty for me. And that's Mechanized Production. 2 blue for an enchant aura that says enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. If you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So I think that is, it's got to last a long time, but also you can play multiples of the same artifact and do a thing, which is really cool. That to kind of help it along so it triggers faster. So yeah, this is a really cool win condition, and I look forward to eating many cookies.
We just had a whole set who's making a whole lot of Power Stones
Yep.
quickly and powerfully.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. You can get a lot of those Power Stones out, and they have the same name, as it turns out.
That's right.
So.
I believe that there was, when this card was in standard, I want to say, or no, not standard. It wasn't a standard combo. This was, they tried to make this work with like Thopter Sword, if I recall correctly, because all the Thopters had the same name.
Right.
It never really broke through in any constructed format in a meaningful way. Obviously, it's a alt win condition that needs 8 of the same name in play, but it is definitely cookie worthy. And I really like that it's back in the set, and it's a fan favorite too.
Oh yeah, like it's an expensive. Well, it's a $10 mythic, which is nice. And
Right. Well, you don't even have to win with it. Just making 2, 3, 4 copies of the artifact you like best is good enough usually.
yeah, it's going to be very scary, which is great. All right, Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is another of the funny cards, I think. They did a lot of jokey things with this set. And some of the jokey things that they did were they made some sly references, they made some overt references, and then they made some weirdly modern references. And my number 9 is one of those references that I look at and I go, really? We're going to make that joke? Pirated Copy is 4 generic into blue for a 0/0 shapeshifter pirate. When you, excuse me, you may have Pirated Copy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a pirate in addition to its other types. And it has, whenever this creature or another creature with the same name deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Obviously, it's a clone. It's a 5-mana clone that has some additional, scroll thief value attached to it. But we're also pirating. We're pirate copying, and that's very funny.
I mean,
I like pirates. Anytime you see pirates, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah.
Does Wizard want you to have pirated copies of its Magic cards? I mean,
Apparently. Of this card, yes.
Of this card.
You wouldn't pirate a Magic card.
You wouldn't download a car. I mean,
Right.
ultimately
You
pirated.
wouldn't steal a pizza.
I mean, pirated copy is it's a cool, there's going to be basically as we go down the riffs of certain card types and abilities, right? We've seen a ton of the different shapeshifter type stuff, the skulking ghost type cards, the pirating or / the clone cards that we've, made 8 different ways. And this is a cool way to do it. And just a silly little, it's an in joke, but it's not. They'll never kind of officially refer to it, but you know how clever it is. I like those.
They've been doing more of that.
Mm-hmm. Like the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah.
I feel like they were scared to do it for a really long time, but now we're getting it in basically every set, and some sets are just like a ton of it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I think that Magic has gotten better now that they realized that when Richard Garfield invented Magic, it was going to look closer to a game of Unglued than it would to a Pro Tour final.
Mhm.
Once they realized once they found the kitchen table as opposed to only seeing what is broadcast, I think that Magic has gotten better.
Yeah, I mean, I can't deny the fact that as much as I love competitive Magic and it's how it brought me into the game, the competitive players are not driving Magic at all. Like we're in the back of the bus, and quite frankly, we kind of belong there because we're not making the game any money. We very rarely are. Let's move on here to our number 8. Ruben, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a card that I believe we've all played against. We've got to have all played against this card, but it does get a brand new artistic upgrade. A bunch of cards in this set are getting that sort of anime treatment, but most of the anime treatment is very cute chibi. Not all of it is like action manga style, but the Worldbreaker that we're getting in this set certainly is. Worldbreaker is 6 generic and a green for a 5/7 Eldrazi with devoid, which means that it has no color. Even though it has the green in its casting cost, it itself has no color, so you can't destroy target green creature, for example. And it has a bunch of very good things it does. When you cast this spell, exile target artifact, enchantment, or land. It also has reach, so when it's in play, it's a 5/7 with reach. And pay 2 generic and a wingding, or a colorless, and sacrifice a land to return it from your graveyard to your hand. This is a classic of those green-red and mono-green Tron decks in Modern. It's just an extremely powerful card that is able to break a lot of stalemates.
There's a lot of text on that card. A lot of, late game abilities, bringing it back is insane. It's got quite the arsenal of abilities.
Oath of the Gatewatch was a very dark time. It was not great. It was weird. As weird as this thing reads, they were proud of it reading that weird. They wanted all of the cards to read that damn weird. It was odd. and it saw a little bit of play. It got a lot more play later when you got, decks that can make more mana consistently. It's a cool card, very powerful, was great in limited and whatnot. It's very powerful in that way. But yeah, ultimately just like it's a colored card. It says it has no color, but what color is it? But it has a color identity, but it doesn't have a color. I hated it. The whole devoid thing and the processing, the exiled cards. It was awful.
You can't hate color identity and love what EDH does for the prices of the cards.
It's not that. It's more like just the weird design of devoid, like almost fighting with itself, and that whole block was just a hot mess, and Gideon was gross, and yeah, I'm glad it's in the rear view. Nerd Girl, what's number 8?
My number 8 is this was just a straight up reprint that I really enjoyed playing in limited. It wasn't a thing that really broke through a ton in constructed. Now you can sometimes see it in more casual decks. I know one of the starter decks had it, and every once in a while you'll see someone build something like this kitchen table-y. And I think this is where I like Magic. I like Magic when kitchen table Archon of the Sun's Grace is good. That is what I think the power level should be. And it's 2 colorless white for an Archon. It's a flying life-linking 3/4 Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink. And it has Constellation whenever you play an enchantment, or whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield. Sorry, that is very different. Under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying, and it has lifelink from the Lord ability. So yeah, this card is sweet when it was printed originally in Theros, and I'm excited to see what sort of enchantment bonuses it has here in this format.
This card's an absolute house. I lose to this thing constantly in Historic Brawl. It was insane and limited. It's got a great stat line. It adds additional power to the board. There are so many ways to trigger this for 1 and 2 mana that you can very easily get 5, 7 power the turn you play it. And yeah, card's very, very good.
Yeah, this was a bomb rare in the limited format that it was in, and you had to answer it immediately. I even got to play a little bit in constructed there for a minute. A 4 mana 3/4 flyer with lifelink, I'm already on board, and then all of a sudden it makes these other creatures better, and then it makes the other creatures that it makes better. Like it's all of that together and deep fried for you. The great card though, I like it. Let's move on here to my number 8. This is a brand new card, an absolutely brand new card, which is cool. And again, this is one of those where I thought the design was nice and clean and straightforward, and I really appreciated that. Sometimes you need to just get a termination facilitator to come aboard and help you. For a black and generic mana, a 1/3 rare human assassin. It taps to put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker, activate only as a sorcery. And whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it is dealt damage, destroy it.
Yeah.
Let's go. I think this card's awesome.
I mean, we've seen bounty counters a few times. This is the first time it has appeared on a multicolored legend since the card Bounty Hunter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I think the design is very cool. Like a 1/3 for 2 is exactly where you want to have this card at. Then turn 3, you can start pinging things away and taking out of the board. Extremely good.
Yeah, the bounty cards are usually 1/3s, right? The other one was in Ikoria. We saw one.
Yeah, Cheville, Bane of Monsters.
They tend to be kind of on the smaller side.
Yeah, and they definitely are like, I'm gonna get that thing in particular, and I really like that this helps out with that. Yeah, great name too, very evocative. Because it's sort of like, I'm not a bounty hunter, I'm a termination facilitator.
This man runs a business. You understand?
Right.
He's running a business. Very nice, very nice. Let's move on here to our number 7. Mine is higher on somebody else's list, and that's okay because it's awesome. Ruben, what's number 7?
My number 7 is on my list, not because of anything other than the art and the name and the flavor that we have here. I mean, it is a good card. Like we've talked about how long past are the days of the Hill Giant, and now we get Maginoth Sentry at common, which was in a 4/4 reach for 4 at common in Dominaria United. Well, guess what? We actually have a strictly better Maginoth Sentry in this set, and it is adorable. It is the cutest thing I've ever seen, and its name is Towering Gibbon. Towering Gibbon is 3 generic and a green for a star 4 ape with reach. Towering Gibbon's power is equal to the greatest mana value among creatures you control. It does see itself, so it's at minimum a 4/4. But look at this art. Look how big this Gibbon is. Look how cool this art is.
That's
What is
a big old ape.
That's a giant Gibbon.
That's a huge Gibbon.
Don't worry, folks. We're perfectly safe here. That's a banana processing plant.
Sorry, I'm a little behind. I'm trying to find the art for it.
Oh,
the
sure.
stupid website with the card sets, they are not in alphabetical order. There's like multiple chunks of alphabetical nonsense.
They're using the set number. I would suggest Scryfall. But either way, Towering Gibbon is a hell of a magic card because again, you're just like that. These stats, we're passing up the stats so quickly. We just went, to the 4/4 reach for 4. Now it's going to be the whatever 4 for,
Right.
with reach. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
the power creep is real.
It's fine. It's just a dorky little reach guy, but it's a fun picture and I like it. And it is next to the
It's
banana
such a
processing
cute-
plant. So.
It's such a cute guy. He's
I
such a
found
little
him.
guy.
Yeah. I like the
incredible.
tourist attraction type feel of this. It's just like,
Mhm.
look.
It reminds me of like Rampage.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Very Rampage-esque of like the monkey doing the thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm on
Yeah.
Scryfall as well, but yeah, even those are like the colors are in multiple chunks out of order.
Yeah, it's the way that it's organized in Scryfall is weird. But yeah.
Well, the set number, it does it by set number, and this set from every other set in the history of Magic, they decided to integrate any artifact that has a color in it in its own set collection number with the color, not in its
Right.
own thing.
Like that artifact you were talking about earlier is in the black cards.
Exactly, which is really, really weird.
A feature in Scryfall that is helpful is if you control F for the card name, it will find the card for you.
Mhm.
I don't know if you knew that.
But either way, Nerd Girl, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is actually a card I didn't know existed until I started scrolling through the set list for this. And it's a reprint that I never really seen before. And I thought it was really cool. I'm fairly sure the first time it was printed was in Mercadian Masks. And I thought the design was pretty cool. And I was really surprised to see something like that. And also the art is kind of sad. So we're going to talk about Monkey Cage. It's a 5 mana artifact that says when a creature comes into play, sacrifice Monkey Cage and put 2 a number of 2/2 green ape creature tokens equal to the creature's converted mana cost. So you play this thing and then you play like some big dumb idiot and you get like a billion little monkeys that break out of the cage. And it's kind of cute. I guess is the big animal breaking out the little animals or something. But the art is very sad.
Yeah, the art's pretty bleak considering how cute the idea of the card is. I mean, the conversation is let's make a Barrel of Monkeys magic card. And then they did that, right? Except for then they sent the art, and now this art is pretty sad.
They locked up all the monkeys, man.
They put all the monkeys in the monkey cage, which
Right.
first of all, why do you just have a monkey cage laying around? You have a specific. Anyway, let's move on from that bleakness. But yeah, this is the first time this card's been printed since Masks and is not on the reserved list, which is interesting.
I mean, this is a Masks card where you go, wait, it's not completely terrible. It's not completely unplayable jank garbo. I thought this was a new card when I first read it because I barely know anything from Mercadian years. And I look back, I'm like, damn, that did exist back then. That's crazy. It's a $30 foil. Remember when foils used to mean something? They do back then. But yeah, that's a really cool card, even from the world of Mercadian Masks, which is nice. All right, so let's move on, y'all, to number 6. I'll go ahead and take number 6 while we're at it. This is another one, like, I just kind of couldn't get over this card. I don't know how to explain it. It's not particularly mind-blowing. It's cool and straightforward, which I like and I appreciate. It's got a really cool name. It's got a really weird, unique, strange artwork almost. It's a cool little element. I love the fact that it's an artifact, so it can go in any deck of this type. that could really use it. But just throw in those Instruments of War, y'all. Just put the Instruments of War in your deck. This card's so neat. It's ridiculous. It's a 4 generic mana, uncommon artifact with flash. And as Instruments of War enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So it's a tribal instant out of nowhere, get you, pump the whole team, which is awesome. And it's perfect for keeping time at a battle or a ball.
Yeah, I love this. This is a great, I mean, it's an instant speed, end of turn, or response to something lore.
Combat trick, yeah.
That you can, it's a combat trick. It's a, I don't have, I'm leaving up my collected company mana, but I have this instead. It does so much in all of the decks that you want this in. And it's very simple. Like it's very easy to understand, goes in a lot of decks.
Yeah. Anytime you have something that's a little bit flexible, it makes it way better.
Yeah, and I just, there was it was weird. Like I scrolled through the whole freaking set, and I was just like, you know what? I really like that Instruments of War. It's really weird. It's just silly. I've never seen anything like that. They've never really taken that ability and put it on something like this before, and I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to Ruben's number 6. What you got?
My number 6 is a card that I believe at one point, if I'm not mistaken, we previewed as Magic Mics. I could be mistaken. We've certainly previewed a tree of some kind. And there is a tree of some kind in this set. And it is Tree of Perdition. Now, it is a cool card. It's already a cool card, but I'm featuring it because of the art. This is another of these weird, creepy manga arts. And this one I like in particular because it's got the creepy twig hands. Like Wizard of Oz, or like the Temple Guards in Legends of the Hidden Temple. Very cool, and it has the Ghost Girl in the front. A little bit of Neon Dynasty flavor. Looks kind of like a kami in this art. Tree of Perdition is a 3 generic and a black 0/13 plant with Defender that says tap : exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness,
which is pretty neat. And we did get our Legends of the Hidden Temple reference in there for everyone's bingo card. Knock that one off. We got to get it in there, man. It's important.
Yeah, I know. I've got to reference it every episode.
Every once in a while, you see Defender trees that do some unique stuff. You get a lot of them in green, and I think you're right. Like the art is, if you cover up like part of it, it's really pretty, and then you see like this sort of like horror scene out of it. It's pretty unique.
Yeah,
which also the little girl's pointing. Is she sicking the tree on someone?
I think so. I think that's the goal here, is that
like
she's friends with the tree and pointing someone out for the tree to eat.
I think Tree of Redemption was the one that we had gotten from Masters 25, perhaps.
Oh, that's right. We did preview that one
because it was from Innistrad originally, and it was no 13 for 4 mana in green, but you tap to exchange your life total with Tree of Redemption's toughness.
Right, so and then Tree of Perdition came out in Eldritch Moon.
Right, and it did it kind of the other way around,
right.
Which was kind of neat. I like that. Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
My number 6 is going to be a short one. We're just going to talk about it really quick because I'm glad that it's reprinted. I think that it's kind of a staple in most EDH decks, and the prices have just gotten a little outrageous for it because everybody kind of needs 1 to 4 copies of this card. And we did actually just get a Secret Lair version of it, which will help with the prices. But now we've got this, and it'll help even more. And I think that this art is the best of the 2 arts. So we're going to talk about Rhystic Study. Ooh. 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment. This is whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1 additional. So it's like on the higher end of the power level. But I mean, that has kept this card at a nice $30 to $40. I just recently built a blue deck, and I opted not to purchase one because, I kind of weighed how fun the card was for the price range. And anytime a card was over $20 and wasn't like super fun for my deck, I didn't buy it. So yeah, I think this is really cool. I'd love to have some of these, and I'm glad that they are making them a little bit more attainable.
It's got new art, which is really cool.
Yeah. New art's very good.
Yeah. It's very nice.
Here's some fun trivia for you. Rhystic Study from Prophecy. The Prophecy printing, I should say, is a common and is by far the most expensive card from Prophecy.
Oh yeah.
What, pray tell, do you think is the second most expensive card from Prophecy? God, for frame of reference, Rhystic Studies are like $35 to $40. Right. This card is listed at $12.70.
from Prophecies. It might be a land or something.
I could read you the text, and I don't think you would know what the card is.
Read me the text.
Generic and a blue enchantment. Whenever a player puts a non-token creature onto the battlefield, that player returns a land they control to its owner's hand.
It's like Coastal Piracy or something.
Nope. That is same good block, same block. It's called Overburden. I didn't know that card existed. Prophecy was so bad.
It was so bad. The common is the best card in the set.
I actually came back from break from a very long time, and I was taking an inventory of like what I had. And in my bulk common and uncommon foils, I found an original Ristic Study. It was a little beat, but EDH hadn't blown up yet. So I was like, oh, this is apparently worth like 15 or 20 bucks. I'll never use it. So I sold it for like 10 because it was like I said, it was a little beat. But yeah, it was just in my bulk box of just random foils.
Yeah.
And now I'm very sad.
Yeah, the streams crossed with my Counter-Strike stuff when one of the casters at one point said, like, I got all these old cards lying around, maybe I should do something with them. And the random page he had was a foil Ristic Study sitting there. And I was like, do you understand that's a $500 foil you have sitting in your freaking... Okay, fine.
Yeah, it was like 15 bucks when I came back to the game, like 15 to 20, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was pretty stuffed. So I mean, it was probably like, maybe if it's 500 now, it's probably like 250 or something.
Yeah,
Right.
I see it here for $400, but that's still a hell of a lot of money, and for a foil common, no less.
But the new art's gorgeous. I love this new art.
Love the new art. I think it's great. I appreciate that there was a secret drop that had a card that's sort of this expensive in it, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And more copies of Ristic Study are not a bad thing. And also, no, they could have bumped it to Mythic if they really wanted to, but they didn't, which I always appreciate. Cool. Let's move on here to number 5. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is the only higher on somebody else's list. Not shocked. I'm excited to talk about that card when we get to it.
Sounds good. Nerd Girl, what's your number 5?
I do have another number 5, and it's another reprint. But it was a kind of card that just blew up very quickly in price and withstood the passing of time as it rotated out of standard. So it's nice to see it getting a reprint and get some love, but it's also like part of one of the combos that I have loved since I was a child. This is the new edition, new version of the combo. I was a really big fan of Mephitross Vampire Triskelion, and you can do something very, very similar with Walking Ballista.
Ooh.
XX, you get an artifact construct. It's a 0/0, but it comes into play with X count +1/+1 counters. You can pay 4 to put a +1/+1 counter. You can also remove 1 to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. So I think it's a pretty neat card, and it's strong enough to see eternal play.
Yeah, this is what you dump all your infinite mana into. This is what you dump your Nykthos mana, your Devoted Druid mana into to finish people off. Has been spectacular since day one and continues to be amazing.
Yeah, this is the type of card that I really wish they would put it into Arena, because a whole bunch of decks like to use this card in particular in a variety of interesting ways. And
Is Jumpstart going onto Arena?
I don't believe so.
It is not. Which makes me sad. And again, that was one of those things that it took away from my sort of connection to the product, in that I'm probably not going to play with any of these cards, and I'm not even really going to see a lot of these cards, and I like them, but I'm not going to actually probably use a lot of them. That said, for my number 5, this is a card that I love. This is straightforward. It's awesome. There was somebody was talking about this card online, and somebody was like, this card is terrible. This card is crap. It's not even that interesting. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you know how cool this mana rock is? Do you understand the mana rocks that we have lived through? They're not as cool as Planar Atlas. Planar Atlas is cool as balls. I love this card. It is 2 generic mana for an uncommon artifact that taps to add a generic mana. A colorless mana, actual wingding. Enters the battlefield tapped. So a 2 mana enter the battlefield tapped mana rock. We're already on board. Everything else is gravy. And that gravy consists of you looking at the top 4 cards of your library, you reveal up to 1 land card among them, then put that card on top of your library and the rest in the bottom order. So it's basically giving you 2 mana for the 1 card. It's setting you up. It's giving you your mana. So it's fixing it. It's helping you, move your mana forward and upward so you can cast bigger, better spells. This thing's already like pre-ordering for $3, and I can definitely see why. This card is great.
This card's very, very, very good. Similar to the reasons we discussed about Giant Ladybug is we're getting something that we're not used to also getting, this additional land fixing staple to. You know, a lot of the drawback of mana rocks, I feel like mana rocks sometimes are a trap in Commander, where you're like, you're ramping, but then you don't have a land drop.
Right.
You want to be doing something, you want both. And this allows you to do both. This really brings forward a game plan for a ramp deck.
Honestly, the mana rocks are so important in Commander. Like, I think that's 100% why this deck is not quite comparable to Ladybug, just because the reason it's pre-ordering for $3 is because you're going to want these in almost every single Commander deck. It's going to be the new like Soul Ring-esque. Obviously not that power level, but like you need X number of mana rocks. When I was building my first couple of EDH decks a month ago or something, it was like, oh, well, we want like, 30 something lands and then like 8 mana rocks. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a lot. But yeah, these are just staples.
Yeah, I mean, another copy of Mind Stone, right? Another copy of Guardian Idol, like all of these different 2 mana rocks. And this is just a really, really excellent version of that.
But there's no feeling worse than if you keep like a 2-land hand with a couple mana rocks and then you don't find a 3rd land. And especially in a format like Commander, where you've got one of the best land in your deck, this helps dig to it. So this does so much work for a very low opportunity cost.
Yeah, and if you're screwed and the top 4 cards were non-lands, you just got through all of them. Like it just, it slices and dices, I'm telling you. Which is awesome. So let's move on here to number 4. This is my second higher, but that's okay because it's awesome. Ruben, what's number 4?
My number 4 is here for nostalgia. There's no other explanation for it. It doesn't have new art. It is a reprint. It has been reprinted a couple of times. But I just love Teferi's Puzzle Box, and I want to talk about it because when I think of my childhood playing Magic, Teferi's Puzzle Box is one of the first cards that comes to my mind. 4 generic mana gets you a rare artifact, originally from Visions, and then was reprinted in the core set a number of times. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in their hand on the bottom of their library in any order, then draws that many cards. Of course, the classic, the immediate 1-2 punch with this is Underworld Dreams. Which you play turn 3 Underworld Dreams, you play turn 4 Teferi's Puzzle Box, and you just that's little kid, that's Ruben little kid magic.
I've seen this reprinted a bunch. It makes for pretty chaotic games, but yeah, that Underworld Dreams is pretty cute.
I mean, I remember that. That was definitely one of the first like Mondo combos because I was there when Visions came out and I bought product and I bought, this was Visions. That was like the first pre-release. That was the first pre-release ever.
It was.
I was in that one. That was awesome. I drove to Nashville to play in that thing. And yeah, Teferi's Puzzle Box like versus this weird Legends card, and all of a sudden you kill them in 2 turns and you're just like, what? It's incredible. And so yeah, that whole hype and that whole engine of going and getting excited about stuff like that, that kind of got kicked off here. And again, I was shocked this thing wasn't on the reserve list, but it wasn't.
Yeah. All
right. Nerd Girl, what's number 4?
Man, I'm the only one with no hires today. Interesting. So my number 4 is a card I picked just for the flavor. I liked the art, the name, the creature type, everything about it. I thought it was super cute. And so we're going to talk about Auntie Blight Bad Influence. 2 colorless and a red for a devil advisor. It's a little, if you look at the art, it's a little devil on the shoulder. And she looks like a little evil Miss Frizzle, sort of whispering bad intentions in your ear. It is a 2/2 flyer that says whenever a source you control deals combat damage, you control deals combat damage to you, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then for 2 mana, you can remove X counters and it deals X damage to any target. So pretty interesting. And it's sort of the play on like whenever a source you control deals damage to you. So that's the bad influence. Like you're sort of like, it's a payoff for doing the hurting yourself things. It's super cute. Yeah. And I love the devil whispering in the ear. It's super cute.
Yeah. It is not hard to make Auntie Blight a 5/5 on turn 4. Like, this is, any pain land. There's a bunch of ways to deal damage to yourself that draw cards. Like, this is easy to get to enable. Also, the Edna mode kind of art is adorable. Just super unique, having the devil on the shoulder. I love it. I love this card.
Yeah, I mean the cat's eye glasses and stuff, and just almost like that, like a kind of a librarian-esque kind of feel, but there's the devils and the horns and all that stuff, which is great. This is the stop hitting yourself on a magic card, which is kind of hilarious. And yeah, this is one of the chase mythics from the set, because it definitely does something incredibly unique. Which is great. So let's move on here to number 3. Boo. I'm going to talk about my number 3 because this guy is rad. And I have a sneaking suspicion, now that I bring it up and I talk about it, it might be Ruben's Arm 5. I don't know. But I know it's super cool. It's super rad. And it was Cool Stuff's own spoiler for the set, which was great. And I love the idea. There's a whole trope now of making tokens that are like 1/1s or low ones or whatever, making them do stuff that's weird, making them do cool things and different stuff. And so, by God, we have a rabbit wizard and Preston the Vanisher. For a white and 3 generic mana, it's a 2/5 rare legendary rabbit wizard. And whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token. That's a copy of that creature, except it's an 0/1 white illusion. And for a white and generic mana, you can sacrifice 5 illusions and exile target non-land permanent. So it encourages you to play in a really weird, funky way. It gives you a lot of weird payoffs. It gives you a payoff even on top of that you're only getting copies of those things. You're able to sack those copies, do something proactive. And it's a freaking rabbit wizard, y'all. It's a rabbit wizard.
This is, in fact, my number 5.
Got there.
This card's incredible. It is a rabbit that pulls you out of its hat, right? In Soviet Russia, rabbits pull you out of that. But in addition to that, it is the mono white blink commander, right? So this combos perfectly with every cloud shift effect that exists. Much less if you have something that is a permanent that does it, like a Felidar Guardian. You just get a bunch of 0/1 flicker wisps, and then you can use those later. This card is incredibly powerful. I would not be shocked to see some amount of eternal play if there was a way to take advantage of it. I mean, we've seen cards like Teleportation Circle and other blink effects have, Soul Herder has seen some amount of play. This goes along great with that card as well. So I would love it if this saw eternal play, but at very least, I love everything about the art and the flavor.
Yeah, pulling rabbits out of your hat is always good, right?
Absolutely.
It's a super flavorful card that has a lot of really fun interactions. And when Soul Herder is the thing that you're doing, I think that makes for fun magic.
And it's like a wizard that's making illusions. Like, come on, the flavor is so sick here. Like, this was one of the very specific cards where I was like, damn it, I can't play with this thing on Arena. Like, Soul Herder into this. I mean, come on, you're being ridiculous, but that's like what those cards are meant to do. Oh man, this card is sweet. I love it. Ruben, what's number 3?
Speaking of sweet things, I think this is maybe the first card we saw from this new Jumpstart thing, and people were just like, hey, everybody, we get the joke. We know who we are. Like, we're Magic the Gathering. We've made Magic cards for a long time. And one of the cards we made was named Uktabi Orangutan, and it had monkeys having sex in the background. And so we decided that we would, in addition to all the other jokes that we've had with that, call that back again by showing you the kid they made. And that would be Kibo Uktabi Prince. Kibo Uktabi Prince is 2 generic and a green for a legendary creature, Monkey Noble. Love that creature type. It has a activated ability of tap: each player creates a colorless artifact named Banana. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, add red or green, you gain 2 life. Whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that's an ape or monkey. And whenever Kibo attacks, defending player sacrifices an artifact. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot.
But so there's a couple things I want to point out here. First of all, it does have a red pip in its text box, so you can make a red-green commander deck with this card.
Right.
What's it called? When you both get something, reciprocal effect on this card is not actually reciprocal, because not only do they get a detriment, but you also get a benefit.
Right.
because you're pumping your team. You know, you're gaining the life and getting the mana, but you're also pumping your team. And oh, by the way, if they were not going to use it, when Kibo attacks, Kibo will use it.
I'm looking at the art, and the bananas are like, I like the way that they're in the front of the frame, and you can see the little monkeys sort of like reaching out, and there's like a bunch of them. And there's not just one, there's multiple little bunny or little baby monkeys.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot going on for those two.
They have perfect teeth, perfect, shiny, bright, well dentist taking care of teeth. Kibo Uktabi Prince, calling back to the fact that the monkeys was doing stuff in the background of Magic cards they didn't really pay too much attention to back in the day. Well, now we're making bananas and they're sacking bananas. You're getting benefits for your bananas, and let's just make some banana tokens, y'all. This was my number 4. I think this is great. I love the callback. I love the in jokes. I think the card itself is really sweet. Another one I wish we could build around in a arena world. 100 historic brawl would be great with this card, but maybe next time. Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
My number 3 is a card that sort of supports a mechanic that I enjoy, and I'm glad to see making its way into one of the Jumpstart decks that you can pick from. I don't think it's a fan favorite, but I personally am glad to see it have some support. I think it's really cool. It doesn't really synergize well with much else, so it's kind of weird to see it in Jumpstart because I would think it would just get left out. But snow is a really cool mechanic. So we're going to talk about Isu the Abominable, a 3 colorless blue for a legendary snow creature Yeti. It's a 5/5 that says you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play snow lands and cast snow spells from the top. There are snow instants and sorceries, so not just creatures. And whenever a snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay either green, white, or blue. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on the Isu the Abominable. I think it's super cute. It's a 5/5 for 5, which is already a decent rate. It's a snow permanent that gets you card advantage. It's super cool. I mean, it's a mythic, so you're not going to see it a ton, but I am glad to see snow, not forgotten.
It's the Bant Snow mythic, or the Bant Snow legend.
Yeah, there's a bunch of white snow cards that didn't have a home in Commander, and this lets those have a home. The bug deck, the green, black, blue snow deck had a Commander. We have the red, green giant that makes icy manoliths. There was really no home for the white snow cards, and now we get the Abominable Snowman also, which let's not forget, like, this is a very sly reference to Snow Classic Scrying Sheets. It's a very powerful card on its own. It gives you card advantage in a archetype, Snow, which oftentimes is heavily dependent on non-snow effects to garner card advantage. So this one allows you to sort of mitigate that. A lot of the payoffs in Snow are big effects, but not necessarily drawing cards. And so, I love everything about this card. I think that it is a little weird for a blue creature to be the Bant, right? You would expect it to be white to be the Bant thing. But it definitely fits in blue really well.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we're getting to this point in Magic, and 30 years in, where there's a lot of weird niches that Wizards can just kind of fill holes, and like, oh well, what about these types of cards, or this type of build, or this just little twist on this thing, and they make enough products that they can just kind of put them wherever at this point. And I love that. I think it's wild to not just the Jumpstart cards, but also like the way cubes are being built. We're getting more and more refined experiences because we have more and more cards that do really weird, interesting stuff in whatever niche you want to put them in, which I think is great. So let's move on here to number 2. Now, my number 2 is somebody's number 1, and that's okay because it rules. That's why it's so high up on the chart. But Ruben, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is the last reprint that I have on my list, and I wanted to feature it because I just love the art so much, and I think that it might be the new go-to art for this card, and that is quite saying something when you consider the long and illustrious history of Preordain. Preordain is a 1-mana sorcery. It's a common that says Scry Tooth and draw a card. Very simple. It is, however, banned in Modern. It is extremely powerful. It was an extremely powerful card in Standard. Card selection and card replacement are hugely powerful effects. Anything that allows you to play multiple spells, put things in your graveyard, very, very good. I don't need to tell you why Preordain is good. What I do need to tell you is that this art is very good. This art is by Ayuko Hata, I believe, who is the artist and author of Wolf Girl and Black Prince, which is a very popular manga in Japan. And this art is gorgeous. I mean, there's something about this art that reminds me of like Descendants Path, or Farewell was another one, the alternate art Farewell, or even the regular art Farewell, where it was just like, I've never seen this art, this art style on a Magic card before. And the reflection in the lake and the moon and the lily pads, like everything about it.
I like the lily pads a lot.
Yeah, this was my number 7. And it features Aminatu, is that how you say that? Aminatu? Aminatu. There you go.
I believe so.
Well, either way, it features that character and it looks amazing. It's one of those cards that, and I can't think of the ones right off the top of my head, but it's one of those cards that it makes you kind of like almost like squint when you're looking at the brightest part of it, because it feels like it's almost shining at you, which I think it's just really hard to do that effect. And when someone does it, an artist does it really well, it is to be lauded. And again, that was my number 7 because I think the artwork is brilliant. Nerd Girl, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is an interesting card. I don't, it's not going to see constructed play really, but it's the kind of cards I like to play a lot in Limited, and I tend to lean a lot towards Orzhov and Life Gain and those kinds of cool decks. So we're going to talk about Rudolph Duskbringer. 5 colorless and a black for a legendary Vampire Angel, which is an interesting combination. It's a flying death touch life linking 4/4 that says whenever you gain life, it gains indestructible till end of turn. So it makes instant speed life gain triggers pretty unique. You can there's a little pinger tap creatures, the little 1/1s that gain life. You can maybe flash in a creature to trigger like Soul Warden type effects. To make this guy indestructible. And then it says at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 and either a white or a black. When you do, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. This does a ton of things, and it really enables, it's a big payoff for one of my favorite archetypes in Limited. So I'm excited to see it. And also like Vampire with big dope angel wings is pretty cool.
There's a lot of cool stuff about this
There's
card.
a lot of thirst for this card on the internet. I don't know if you pay attention to that, but this is an attractive Vampire Angel person. It's also a very cool card. This was close to coming to my list because the effect is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad you have it on your list because it was like the last few cuts of mine. I think it's brilliant. I love the idea of having sort of a lifelink, life gain deck that's kind of very proactive in its way. I think a lot of life gain and lifelink type strategies are about like, don't touch me and don't hurt me. And this is like, go out there, attack with the Duskbringer, and then pay mana to bring something else up, and trigger this and trigger that and gain some life, keep going. And I think that's really cool and unique about this card. So let's move on here to our number 1. Ruben, what's number 1?
I think you guys are going to share it. You said, oh, no, I'm sorry.
It was my number 2.
Number 1.
It's somebody's number 1.
I'm sorry. I was just going to make sure because I knew nobody had my number 1.
Yeah.
It's probably number 2, yes.
I think, well, maybe. I don't know. So my number 1 I chose not for specifically the card, which is cool. It's a cool card.
It's a cool card.
Not specifically for the art. It's cool art. Not specifically for anything other than the character. The character that is featured was the main character for the Ravnica story arc. And more than that, had like this wild hero's journey that went for several, like 3-4 books, I think. And went on after his death. And we finally get to see a card that features Agros Kos after his death with Agros Kos, Eternal Soldier. Agris cost Eternal Soldier is 3 generic and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature Spirit Soldier with Vigilance. Whenever Agris cost Eternal Soldier becomes the target of an ability that targets only it, you may pay a colorless and a Boros mana. Very fitting for Agris cost. If you do, copy this ability for each other creature you control that this ability could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. Holy moly. I mean, there's got to be some, at the very least, tap target creature gets +1/+1 effects targeting Agris costs is going to overrun your whole team. Yep. So a very cool card. And also featuring Agris Koss, who does, let's not forget, everybody, has a statue built of him in the 10th district of Ravnica. So, he's a big deal.
There were a couple of cards that have done this like in a limited environment that double things, usually like in the Is It colors, which is really cool. There was like a Battle Blaster Mage, I think, where you just like always wanted to cast like Sure Strike on it over and over again. These kinds of decks are always really, really fun to pilot, and you can just kill your opponents out of nowhere.
Yeah, this was my number 2, which was great. And I love the ability. I think the ability is brilliant, and I definitely called this guy Argus Cause for many years before I read it again and was like, wait, Agris, are you serious? Mm-hmm. But the card itself is super cool in its ability, but ultimately I love the character and the card, and so when they both came together as awesome cards and awesome characters with interesting things you can do, like a feather deck is just waiting to be built with this guy hanging out in there, stuff like that. But yeah, this is a card that's pretty easy to get stupid and crazy, and that's like would be my favorite cards if I played a lot of Commander, would be things just like this.
I mean, there's so many like when this creature attacks triggers, like Thundering Kaiju comes to mind with this card, right? Where if you target Agris with the Thundering Kaiju, all of your creatures get +1/+1 counters, and then they all deal damage. I'm pretty sure.
Well, then that ability trigger resolves.
The ability trigger, right. It just goes. So, I mean, just crazy stuff like that. Much less if you go, target creature against double strike with like Duelist Heritage or something. There's so much you can do with this card.
I have a feeling that there was at one point, because they have to sit down and plan out this stuff at some point for Arena, and they've said, programming this is going to take us weeks. You understand what this card is doing? It's going to kill us. Oh my God, Nerd Girl, what's number 1?
My number 1 is a card I admittedly put on here because it's one of my favorite cards. No other reason. And I was really excited because I thought it was coming to Arena, and now it's not. And it probably shouldn't be on my number 1 regardless. But
who cares?
Please, can I have it on Arena? Goblin Grenade.
Yeah.
For 1 red, you get a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast Goblin Grenade, sacrifice a goblin. Goblin Grenade deals 5 damage to target creature or player. And the flavor text says, don't underestimate the aerodynamic qualities of the common goblin. And the art is a goblin who has dynamite shoved in his mouth, and he's throwing him over the wall. And it's fantastic. This is in my Legacy Goblin decks, even though it's not like good enough to be in Legacy Goblins, but I don't care, because I'm going to play it and I'm going to Goblin Grenade people, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean,
rip to a real one. I love Goblin Grenade.
Yeah. I mean, they snugged it into Magic 2012, so it is in Modern, which is nice. Would have loved to have had it for Historic, because Muxus also exists there, and this would have been hilarious in the Muxus decks. Cool trivia that the Ron Spencer version of it in Fallen Empires has the word Mike in the spear for his friend that he put in there, which is nice. Yep. And yeah, you question, how much damage is too much damage for the mana that you pay and the resources that you put into it. This is a lot of damage for 1 mana and a 1 permanent. That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, this does everything I want in a Goblins deck. It deals damage, it costs no mana, and it kills my own creatures.
And it's so fun.
You put the goblin in the
That's right.
Yeah.
Put your cousin in the cannon.
Yes. And then your
the fodder cannon. Yeah.
So for my number 1 here, this was, one of my favorite cards in the set. It's a reprint, but it has a really sweet anime version, which I think is great. This is the type of card of the cards, and if I were going to build a deck that would have this card in it, this is the number 1 version of the card I would want to be featuring. And as the newly animated super sweet looking Karn Liberated. It is 7 generic mana for a mythic legendary planeswalker Karn with 6 loyalty counters, plus 4. Target player exiles a card from their hand, -3. You exile target permanent, and -14. You restart the game, leaving in exile all non-aura permanent cards exiled with Karn Liberated. Then you put those cards onto the battlefield under your control after you've restarted the freaking game. So it's still cool, it's still crazy, and it's still weirdly unique, and I love it, and it looks cool as hell in this version.
Restarting the game is a lame mechanic.
Oh well.
But restarting the game.
But the art's cool.
But the art's cool.
That's true. The art is cool. Please don't restart the game. I'd rather just die.
Another card where I can
Thank
see
you.
the arena people going like, please don't make us code this.
This artist has only done 3 Magic cards, and the other 2 are Kamigawa Neon Dynasty promos of Ogre Head Helm and Soul Transfer. And it's like very Fire Emblem-esque. Like the art style is very specific. And it is very cool. We've never really seen something, honestly, this humanoid of a Karn. I feel like we get a lot more robot-y Karns, and this definitely feels much more personifying.
And I appreciate that. And that was our top 10 Jumpstart 2022 cards. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you next week.
Thank you, Ruben.
Hey, if you guys play any of these cards, let us know. And Wizards, let us play these cards on Arena. Come on.
That would be
some
great.
of them, at least some of them.
It's definitely true. As we move on to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and UltraSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.